session explores how CTV integrates with digital out-of-home, mobile, and social to build a unified and measurable omni-channel experience. Moderating this session is Jayanth Kumar, Managing Partner, SocioClout Integrated Media Agency. Please welcome Jayanth Kumar. Please welcome Jayanth Kumar, Managing Partner, SocioClout Integrated Media Agency, for the session Omnichannel Orchestration, CTV's role in broader media mix. Please welcome our finalist Nitin, Khanna, VP Marketing at Acko. Huge round of applause, everyone. Please welcome Rajiv, Rajagopal, Head Advanced TV, WPP Media. Netravathi, Balaram, AVP Interactive Avenues. Ganapathy, Subramanian, SRM Director Media Planning and Buying at Head Digital Works A23. Suman, Head Media Analytics and Partnership at Wipro Consumer Care and IT. Kumar, Senior Global Marketing Manager at Lenovo. Let's explore how CTV fits into the greater scheme of omnichannel excellence. Over to you, Jayanth.
Thank you, Muska. Good evening, everyone. I think through the day we had multiple sessions talking about how CTV the shift has been happening. And also we had a couple of leadership sessions understanding how the CTV is actually kind of being the part of overall broader mix. And now we'll dive into how we can actually make CTV the overall omnichannel way as well, right? I think any further ado, I'll jump into the first question. Very important question. Have you guys watched the recent Raj Shamali and Ninja Malia on CTV, the podcast?
Yes.
So do you find him guilty or not guilty?
It's too long for CTV viewing. Instagram.
+1 on that.
I've seen the shorts on my feed, but appointment viewing is on the CTV, so both play a very important role.
Nice. So I'll jump into the first question with asking you, considering insurance as a category, right? Which has pretty long decision cycles and multiple touch points. So how do you see the CTV journey fitting into your overall scheme of the media mix and everything?
Sure. So I think, like you rightly said, insurance has a long buying cycle. It's not like you're buying sneakers and you do some impulse purchase and you're binge watching Raj Shamani's podcast at 1 a.m. in the morning, something like that. It's a lot more considered purchase, which is where we've seen actually connected TVs play an important role for us in a long buying cycle category. Being top of mind and having recall plays a very important role. I think CTV for us has given that high quality environment where the user is more relaxed, he's more receptive to communication, and that has helped us build that recall throughout his entire purchase journey, right? So for example, starting from, how do you at times even create a need for the category. Like for example, one of the products that we sell is health insurance. While everybody knows it is important, but not everybody ends up buying it or understands the importance for it. So right from need creation to creating awareness about how we are different, what we offer differently that other people don't, and then to a little bit of a last minute push also that helps us need a conversion. We've seen CTV play a fairly active role for us across the market.
You mentioned about recall, right? Considering the multiple platform, impact on omnichannel. How do you ensure that recall is relevant across the multiple channels?
By multiple channels, you mean outside?
It's like, you know, omnichannel way, if you kind of plug it back to like all different platforms that you like do a campaign. So how do you ensure that recall is like stay relevant there?
So I think, see, what we end up doing is that, you know, it's anyway a part of our broader media mix that we deploy. For recall, we don't see a challenge too much because I think, luckily some of the creative devices that we've also landed upon have been fairly memorable. And so, like, on health insurance, like, we have Munna Bhai and Circuit as our devices. On the car insurance side also, Saf and Sara over the last 2 years have helped form some memory structures with our consumers. So recall, because of the fact that we are coming off a fairly well-established creative device, is typically not a problem. We've seen that on CTV also, recall has been built through multiple formats as well. Like I think YouTube Shorts viewing for us on a connected TV has been like a bit of a surprise. Like when we started off like a year back for recall and everything, also we didn't think that anybody would want to watch a natively vertical format on a 55-inch, like a rectangular screen, right? But I think we were pleasantly surprised in terms of how like a lot of even YouTube Shorts viewing, which is again like a format that we actively use to build recall, is still being consumed in a form factor like connected TVs.
Nice. I think that circuit is definitely a great recall. Like I have to relate with Acko. That is something which like come to my mind like, great. Like Rajiv, like given that you have a deep understanding in the advanced TV and the CTV and all that, so how do you advise your brands to kind of like balance one as a CTV as a part of your overall media mix, considering like programmatic is also like a key for you as well. Like, so how do you advise your brands?
So at WPP Media now, I'm not allowed to quote the erstwhile form name, group them now anymore. But at least in WPP Media, we always start with audience first approach, right? And that's how we anchor all our planning into the KPIs of how based on the consumer consumption habits, right? So it's always an audience first approach. So in that segment, to rephrase your question, like there will be multiple mediums which will have various merits to when it comes to it. Some might qualify as programmatic, some might qualify as performance, some might qualify as only pure top funnel, right? So it's a combination which will matter to reach out. And as rightly said by Nitin, right? Today, YouTube Shorts, which none of us even thought that it will be consumed in this manner.
Sure.
But even I see a lot of my friends, kids, consuming it in that manner over there, right? While the rest of the screen is empty, but it's so I think it's in a discovery stage. Consumer consumption habits are changing very, very actively. So in that aspect, for me, as I said, it's about how do you track the entire journey, how do you create a full funnel. And in that aspect, today, CTV is definitely a top and a mid-funnel activation, right? It purely addresses the concerns of top and mid-funnel. But unless you activate that, it's not that your lower funnel is going to boost up, right? So it's a combination of all these. Now, there are two angles to it also. When, I don't know, I see CTV as multiple stages it's evolving. It's not pure branding now. It's being actively part of a business impact, right? And not a media deliverable anymore. And to give you an example, one of our CPG brand used advanced TV, which we call as a part of the overall ecosystem, advanced TV, to target a specific catchment area to influence the demand in that area. So the idea was that they were not able to crack a distributor level combination with two of the major retail outlets there. So they want to create and influence the demand in that area. And they used CTV so effectively to kind of hyperlocally target and create that influence. And thereby, what happened was that there was an artificial demand into that product, and they were able to crack a better deal over there. And if you listened carefully in the previous panel, somebody has already mentioned about it, right? So I'm not allowed to quote it again, but I think it's already mentioned. So the clue is there, how they actively use that as one of the important hyperlocal activation. Another jewelry brand of ours, used connected TV in another very innovative way to kind of target their 30 plus stores and activate super premium audience catchment area over there and see how the walk-ins happens there. So today, I think every medium, and I'm not talking about CTV alone, every medium is evolving, consumer habits are changing, so I think it will have all its merit over there. It's the key here is orchestration. How you are actively orchestrating all these mediums together from a planning lens, from an audience insight lens, and then making it very powerful in terms of a creative engagement, audience engagement, and this all has to be stitched together. It cannot have with a different measurement KPI. This all has to come with a unified, or probably at least the measurement KPI should be targeted and aligned on all these. And in that aspect, I think that's where the entire omni-channel activation makes sense.
But do you see as you foresee that CTV will claim the larger the part in the overall media mix as we move forward?
See, I think with all due think, I think advertisers moves where there is more audience coming in from. That's obviously as reach building, right? I don't think that has fundamentally changed yet. So it's always reach, right? Which where they need to continue focusing on. So in that aspect, as and where we see more and more CTV penetration in the country, which is almost staggering growth now, it's interesting to watch. Second aspect of what I want to leave aside is that today CTV is no more only a metro-centric phenomenon, right? More than, in the last 8 months, we have seen more than 50-55% of our activations are happening beyond metros, right? There are a lot of emerging markets which are seeing like smaller cities discovering in terms of CTV viewership and everything. So it's become more affordable. Content is there everywhere. Regional players are becoming extremely strong and potent. So there will be more and more viewership happening over there. In fact, it's getting into the rural and more and more. So I think it's convenience which will matter. I think we need to carefully follow where the consumers are rather than be expecting them to be there. Okay, this is there, how it will be.
Great. Netra, so considering you are representing most integrated media point of view, right? So how do you ensure the CTV is not a silo tactic? And how effectively you're going to bridge all your different platform across while you're devising your campaign? So across your DOH, your social, or other campaigns as well.
See, I guess as marketers, in the last decade, we have seen a lot of channels coming up. It includes, or at least the ones that have stayed, including your programmatic or influencers or your OTTs. We have never had a challenge when it comes to adoption, but in terms of how we use the medium and how do you synergize it to get the maximum benefit out of it, right? And it's totally dependent on individual brands and category. What works for an e-commerce brand might not work for maybe let's say something like an Ganapathy, right? It's totally dependent, and the only way you would ever get to know what works and what doesn't work is through a lot of experimentation. On one of the scooters brand that we actually manage, what we realized is, let's say for example, we tested something out on a bilateral series, just connected TV spots on a bilateral series, versus when we did the same thing along with social and a little bit of DOH, we saw spikes in people coming in for the test ride, like people actually walking into the store. So we saw the full funnel impact of it, especially when everything was combined. So the thought is, while I think the gentleman already addressed the point of looking at audience first, it's about what works for individual category and brand as well. So a lot of experimentation to figure that bit out is something that's most critical for all of us. And the only way to ensure is to test and figure out it really works for you. And like we said, audience first, and you try figure out what, not the consumer journey, figure out what's working, where are they, what are they doing, does this really work for the brand? Go back to your measurement and see what has worked, what hasn't worked, and then take measures. Sweet.
Great. I think that one of the interesting learning was Wipro was mentioning, for one of our campaign, 2.5 minute creative was used, on a CTV environment, and the kind of the VDR which throws 53%. I mean that's staggeringly much higher than the benchmark which is there, right?
So just to add to that, right? We have actually promoted something for a e-com fashion brand, and it was a 20-minute video, and believe me, the VTRs were upwards of 40. So yeah, it really does work because it's a laid back viewing, right? And people don't know what they're consuming. They maybe not actively consuming as well. So that's probably the reason.
Right. Heavy, like so basically like you look at like more from a diverse market and different consumer segment, right? And also consider this is like more fragmented, right? So how do you ensure that CTV is kind of reinforced across your various channels that you're using?
For us as a category, PCs, laptops, the purchase cycles are pretty large, unlike insurance, where you hopefully buy one and you stick with the rest of your life. Laptops unfortunately go away in 4-5 years, but it takes about 3 to 4 months in the decision making journey, so it is some time. That usually ends up having 2-3 cycles in a year where people are buying laptops in this country. Once you're pretty certain of your spikes and where your purchases are happening, because the market is pretty evolved, like in terms of route to market. Like Nitin said, you know your audience, you know where they are. You basically then start treating CTV as a surrogate for HHI, which is household income, and what is your audience. I'm in a category where my average consumer like product price that I'm selling is $800, not cheap, right? So I'm not a CPG brand, I'm not selling a low ticket product, I'm a very high ASP product. So once I define that aspect for myself, CTV becomes table stakes in my media plan. It is imperative for it to be one of the top 3 line items. Then the only thing I'm doing about that is impact. If there is some cricket or some live sports that we create, otherwise CTV is table stakes. So that is the role it plays in the average media plan or an average campaign outlay for somebody like me in my category. And this would be true for any high involvement category in white goods, consumer durables, laptops, mobiles, and because the average selling price is between $500 to $1,000. Once you establish that importance, and like I think Raj mentioned, I was on a similar panel 1 year back. CTV penetration was, what is the CTV penetration in India? 40 million, 50 million, right? It'll probably be north of 60 million. Next time we speak, it'll be 100 million. So we are on that journey where we still don't know what the upside is. So I think what's going to happen is brands with smaller budgets or brands who target tier 1 India will come first, and then the other brands will follow later, which is the larger media publishers, the CPG brands and the publishers of the world. So I've been doing CTV for about 3 years, more than 3 years. Some with YouTube and some directly with either an ad platform or as a placement opportunity. So I think we get very sharp access to audience. We get very good delivery on creative. We get what you get is a very involved audience, high PTRs. So it's a win-win for brands like us. Because in our category, spending is anyways very tight. A lot of effort goes into retail and performance. So this is one of the very rare opportunity for us to do building brand. Unless you don't have a very good creative device, you have to rely on the media placement to take you to your audience. So for us, CTV does a very good job in delivering very strong 30, 45 seconders, 1 minuters. We are able to time into certain sale events on Amazon, Flipkart. For our category, those are very important periods. So the impact that I would suggest, the way that you're mentioning for a local, for us, for example, I know in 12 hours from now, if Amazon's Prime Day sale is going live, I will take a CTV roadblock for 3 days for a certain amount of inventory. And that is a sure shot win for me. So those are certain ways we can very easily game the placement and get a very good ROI for that.
Just out of curiosity, since you mentioned YouTube, right? So do you see like CT environment and YouTube, right? So because though it is there also in the CT environment, do you see it as a competition or like complementing each other in this whole space?
So for me, the category I have been working on is gaming PCs, not 823. Sorry, not your gaming, different gaming, apartment gaming. In that category, the audience that I'm going after, YouTube is their bread and butter. They live on YouTube, they create content for YouTube, they consume content from YouTube, and outside of the world of actual gaming, the world they live in is the world of YouTube. So for me, CTV on YouTube is actually a placement. I will do mastered CTV, I will do content based and intent based, 4. I'm being hardcore. So for me, CTV acts as a kicker. If it's somebody who is in market looking for my products or category, CTV becomes a very good way for me to show them my new creative, new product, whatever. So I look at CTV as a very, very important part of my media mix.
Great. I mean, since you
He's just
mentioned,
given us idea how to pitch for your brand now. Your entire media strategy.
That would be the other thing.
so great, I think mentioned about gaming, I'll just come back and with you. Like, since it's a very high engagement category, right? So how do you ensure that CTV is just bridging the gap between your upper funnel and your middle funnel action as well?
Probably I'll take a step back. I think in the previous panel, Mr. Sanjay had mentioned how things have changed after the pandemic, right? So I think most of the changes probably to do with CTV or within our category as such in real money gaming has a lot to attribute to what our habits were formed, what kind of habits were formed during the pandemic, right? Like most of our entertainment or media viewing habits went through a lot of change. A lot of original content was not available, or closest to original content that was available during that time was Malgudi days or Raman and Savage Raman, right? I think people resorted to online video viewing platforms, and I think that was a time when a lot of CTV viewing kicked off because people didn't want to just stick to a smaller format of ads or a smaller format of video viewing on mobile phones. We were confined to our homes, and that was the largest screen available to us at that point in time, right? Moving forward from there to where we are today, I think CTV is trying to bridge that gap which linear TV is failing to, saying, okay, I will give you the trustworthiness of a linear TV. At the same time, I will also give you that, I wouldn't say engagement, probably an interactiveness what a digital platform would provide, right? So that's the kind of gap CTV is trying to bridge today. And more importantly, what's happening is a lot of new age brands or not so CPG kind of brands started optimizing their videos for a smaller screen. What CTV is doing is reviving people to get back into larger format of ads, right? If I have to take my own example, until Feb this year, I had SRK as my brand ambassador. Imagine having that kind of a personality coming for your brand and showing him on your mobile screen, right? Like it loses the entire purpose. What magic he can do on a larger screen is just not what you can witness on a small screen, right? So all of those things is being tackled currently by CTV. I think there's a long way to go. But having said that, what makes it more important for me to look at CTV is the way all of us consume CTV, right? I think even in the previous panel, there were reports saying what CTV adds to in terms of how much people recall after viewing an ad on CTV or whatever it is, right? What happens when people consume CTV is that all your TGIs and GWIs say that 80% of your consumers also end up having a second screen or a mobile phone in their hand when they consume CTV. And that second screen is literally gold for us because in some of our previous campaigns we have, from a trial and or a test and learn kind of a budget, we have tried to look at all these innovative formats in CTV, be it gamified ads or QR codes of sorts that people reach my platform to look at what kind of games they can play. I think that's the place where it sinks from upper funnel storytelling to a mid funnel action.
If you could just really emphasize, because you're an app first brand, right?
Yeah.
Because for you, it's like, how do you look at it from an pre-marketing perspective? Like, how do you like CTV?
See, I am looking at CTV purely from a branding and upper funnel awareness perspective. I'm not looking at it from a marketing aspect as of now yet. But I think, having said that, thank you. See, I don't want to go in that space because everybody is looking for accountability, and if you're just a performance-based approach into your branding, I think there's no point in driving any more brand campaigns, right? You will just be doing your growth campaigns. So we want to segregate it, and you're looking at it from a branding and awareness perspective.
Great. I mean, that's what like Prince was also looking at, I guess. So I was a little curious to kind of understand because it's an app first, right? So that's how you guys go about it. So someone like like considering potential consumer brands, right? This is always kind of struggle with the scale and other things, right? So how do you kind of see the CTV role in terms of building the brand cohorts across multiple geos and the platforms that you kind of look at?
Sure. So I think Nitin rightly spoke about for example, policies as a thing, right? And then there is a Lenovo which talks about PCs, which is very high cost in terms of the product pricing. In FMCG it's very interesting because one, my product price is maybe 30 rupees, 35 rupees, and my audience is very, very mass. I mean, I can't really define. When I define the audience, it's the entire India that I talk about, right? So it's very difficult when you try to look at sort of markets which are very, very important, which media to take. And when we think about FMCG, the first thing that comes to our mind is TV, right? I mean linear TV, because we talk about BART, we talk about 210 million household that we capture and all of this. And where does the omni-channel fits in? And CTV, what we see in the last probably last 1 year when we are planning for across brand from Santoor to Chandrika, Yardley, Soft Touch, there are variation across brands, category, markets, all of this, and primarily Wipro is very, very regional focus. So we don't think about pan India as a plan, we think about AP as a market, Maharashtra as a market, within Maharashtra, Mumbai versus ROM. So those kind of things, nitty-gritties that we sort of look at. So what we are figuring out, and we are seeing that CTV is increasingly playing the brand coherence across geography and platform, right? So the first thing is CTV gives the very premium video experience which the consumer used to get it from linear TV. Now the only thing is, because CTV completely defined a new prime time, because you don't need to sit in front of the TV at 8 o'clock to watch a particular serial or the top show, and you can watch it anytime at your convenience. That is one. Second, what we saw is when we planned exactly, we look at the frequency capping, right? So for example, we run our campaign on TV or some programmatic platform, and we look at mobile CTV all together a separate line item, but run it as a combined plan for a particular market. So what it happens, like the omnichannel that we are talking about, if a consumer, for example, in a month, if she is consuming mobile first and then probably moving to CTV and all of this, and I am reaching her 5 times, so 7 times in a month, then I know that combinedly I have reached. So that gives her an overall perspective that, okay, the brand Santoor is everywhere, because she is consuming multiple platforms and we are there, right? And so that is the second point. The third point is CTV helps us, unlike the linear TV where you just plan it at a broad level and see that, okay, this much of GRP or this much of reach. CTV, I can define my audience through first party, third party. We can look at behavioral nuances, and one of the interesting thing we find out. So a few weeks back, I sent one of my team member in Vijayawada, because AP is one of the big market for Santoor, and we dominate there. So she made some 20 consumers, and she went to their household, checked their remotes, checked their phones, what kind of app, what they consume, what is the daily viewing pattern or consumption pattern. What came out clearly that it is not anymore a NCCSA phenomenon. So it moved beyond NCCSA, and why NCCS B or C is probably using it, because what they are figuring out, whether she's a housewife or she's working, she's seeing that I'm anyway paying for my OTT on mobile, right, for one stream. If I take CTV also, I will pay maybe an incremental cost, but I'm getting that smart TV whenever I can watch. So I don't need to pay a 350-400 bucks per month to a Tata Sky or to Tata Play or some other DTH or MSOs, and I can use the same content. So in NCC's household, she is casting from her mobile to smart TV. She's saying that I have the device, let me cast it and watch it on CTV. So what we understood, and from a mass category FMCG perspective, that reach is important. The experience of large screen, nobody wants to go out of it. Though we call mobile as solo device, watch it at your convenience, but the experience of large screen is still there, and pretty much the video content that they want to consume, and very much on the content that they want to watch. So it is not about I'm showing a content that you have to watch. Now I can choose my content and I will watch. CTV gives that freedom, and with the data support. So I think that helps in the omnichannel planning across the devices.
When considering you are a mass market brand, so reach is definitely imperative.
Absolutely.
And again, coming from the adoption point of view, right? Because since you mentioned tier 2, tier 3,
yes.
Do you see there is an increase in adoption of CTV compared to your tier 1?
Absolutely. So basically, one trigger could be saving cost, which any housewife has to sort of show it to her husband, saying that though I may not be working, but I am saving so much money of yours by sort of giving you an experience which is on TV. That is one. Second, what I am seeing is there is a FOMO syndrome which happens in the tier 1, tier 2 markets, that when they speak to somebody who is residing in a metro and they talk about CTV, and she feels like, okay, I am not using, I am missing something. So can I let go of my linear TV, while linear TV still is a very, very big sort of a channel, but she's moving into CTV and she's using CTV, mobile on the go. Then probably in certain household there are two TVs. One is probably the linear TV for the senior member of the household. She's still sort of following that viewing pattern. But the other generation, the younger generation, which is between 16 to 30, they are getting into more CTV, and that early adoption is already there.
Nice. That's a pretty interesting list of yours. Great. Nitin, coming to you, right? Again, we spoke about category, which is multiple decision points, all of that, right? So when it comes to your CTV contribution to omnichannel setup, right? So how do you try to mitigate and isolate that impact and the multiple consumer touch points as well?
So I think, see, for us, what we've seen is whenever connected TV has worked for us, the impact has been fairly clear. There are 2-3 surrogates, at times not surrogates, but direct signals that we work. Right? One, we've seen that there's brand search traffic uplift that happens. There is direct traffic that goes up or app installs that go up for us. That's been a fairly direct indicator. This is mostly whenever we've taken a CTV cross impact sort of a format, be it a cricket or we're quite a Shark Tank or something, for example. So we've seen that happen. We've tried out a couple of things in terms of how do you isolate it, where geographical isolation at least has helped us in terms of figuring out, what is the relative impact that the CTVs had. For example, just beginning of this year, we did a pretty decent CTV first burst for our health insurance campaign, but we restricted it only to Bangalore and Hyderabad. The rest of the cities did not have this as a CTV as an input. The other channels from a media mix perspective.
Impact your overall reach. Impact your overall reach when you did a geographical.
No. So see, 3 years back when we were looking at CTV, at least in our media plans, as something that adds incremental or plus reach, right? From then to now, CTV is not being looked as an incremental reach addition. कि हमने TV plan कर लिया, फिर उसके बाद आपका +5 on reach is what CTV is doing. But for the for the product that we are selling, to the consumer profile that we are selling to, more than reach, obviously, relevant reach is what is more important. And that relevant reach metric is being sufficed pretty well by this connected TV approach that we took. Right? And the impact that we saw was also pretty good. Where the rest of the markets were at X, we saw this CTV intervention in Bangalore and Hyderabad. It gave us lifts of 1.3x, 1.4x, which sort of reinstated our belief in the medium as well. And I think lastly, from a measurement perspective, one advice from my side would be let's not look at CTV from a very last click attribution, that modern perspective, because then you're just going to kill the medium. It's
still our channel.
It's not meant for that. How we use it is more like an opening act to a concert, right? How do you get the users excited about it? How do you get people hooked on to what you have to say? So it's still a very upper funnel glue that we use in our omnichannel media mix strategy.
That's interesting. Rajiv, coming to you because you keep day in and day out juggling with your tech stacks. Data is part of your day-to-day life, right? So considering the media is more fragmenting, is becoming more accelerating, right? So how do you see the data interoperability and creating that distinction, right, in the overall CTV environment? So how do you see that?
You asking this only from a CTV environment, from an omnichannel?
Omnichannel perspective, so how from an omnichannel perspective?
From an omnichannel perspective. So, for me, I would say data interoperability is not a nice to have; it's a must to have if you want to operate from a true omnichannel process. Otherwise, it will be like a multi-channel activation only. You will never be able to qualify this under true omnichannel until there is data inflection flow. And from a CTV perspective, I second what Nitin is saying also, right? The blind spot of CTV today is that it's not an attribution model to the last mile, right? It's largely from a top funnel activation. But in India, at least that's the case in India, right? In other markets, we are seeing that there is adoption stage is different, the tech advancement is different, and hence there is interoperability between your CTV apps, your OTT apps, your social, web, all this. I think we are in a very discovering stage, evolving stage in the market. Consumerism is leading that shift predominantly, right? So from that aspect, if I say yes, that's a blind spot, I would say, and I would like to inform that it's not the true omni-channel part of it. But is that all? No. I would say, is there alternatives to that? That's exactly what tech can build in, right? So for example, today we have a lot of data click routes, right, which actually helps us in advancing this kind of conversation. It could be both deterministic and probabilistic. Right now it is more lean to probabilistic, less of deterministic. But what advancements like Google ADH and ACS, and Ankit was here, you would have probably seconded, like how Amazon Cloud Services actually create those aspects. In fact, WPP Media has recently bought over one of the largest DCR company in UK, Infosum, right? And this entire aspect is to sound of create this entire environment of cross-screen or cross-channel measurements or cross-channel interoperability, right? How do you track a consumer from a branding, you engage them with a large screen activation, across the journey of the consumer till multiple touch points? How do you crawl the consumer's journey in that aspect? So yeah, from that aspect, I truly believe that these are things which will evolve. It will actually also helps not only from a data targeting perspective, it also helps in sequential creative targeting, right? Today you are using branding ad probably across all the channels, right? But tomorrow probably you'll have a branding channel ad, an intent ad, and then probably the last call to action ad. This all will sequentially be targeted to a consumer. Now imagine that I've seen already a branding ad, probably it's a longer one, right? A 60-second or a 2-minute or a 20-minute or whatever, right? And then once I've shown engagement and intent to it, then the next level of the feature comes into me, and then moves into a call to action, right? So probably that's what sequential creative would lead on to. But I think as we all see this, in fact, there are a lot of learnings which is coming from other global markets, like for example, Australia. We're seeing how broadcasters have come together and created a complete aspect of subscriber data into a one pool, right? Because that's not something which we don't have access to, right? The subscriber data, which we call as the consumer's data, right? Now imagine if all these broadcasters are able to create a hashed ID across and create one pool where we can actually map the consumer across multiple OTT platforms or OEMs. Right? These are all aspects which already other markets are doing. So, and India will soon adopt it, right? CTV is already into 90% penetration in US. India was not even thinking about it in 2020, as Ganapathy said, right? Post-COVID things are changing now. So India is soon catching up on those tech adoption and everything. So I think these are all insights which will come later. What matters the most is the disjoint communication which is happening right now. Can we make it into a more co-joined messaging, right? And rather than going to consumers where they are there, we need to create that how we target them with multiple messaging. I think these are aspects which will turn the entire journey of what you do.
I think definitely. I think we are definitely making a progress in transitioning from probabilistic to like more deterministic. Either it's a 0 or 1. There is no like 70% or 30%, right? Great. Coming to KD right now. So when you're running your integrated campaign at scale, right? So I mean, what kind of a framework or the performance signals you actually rely to evaluate your CTV campaigns?
So a couple of things. One is, I think everybody's mentioned that by now already, you get significantly better VTRs on CTV. That is like a table stake. I'm running the same creative on YouTube on 3 placements at CTV. I will get significantly better. Though I got very good. So that is like a hygiene metric now. And I'm not talking about, I will keep OTT live sports outside because that tends to skew a lot of understanding based on CTV, because then it's just brilliant. Doesn't matter where you're watching it on. So outside of live events, you get very good CTRs, very good VTRs, not CTRs, very good VTRs. And that is something you cherish because there is a certain role the creator has to play in the journey of the media mix. If it's a new creative, you want to see very high view through. And over a period of time, you keep evolving your creative to ensure that either it's relevant for the platform or you run other creatives. So that's the first thing. Second is depending on the nature of placement. So I with CTV have done platform level placement, OEM level placement. So when I say platform, I mean YouTube or OTT, Amazon Prime Video within the native ecosystem of Firestick. I have worked with Teams also to do placements. And then I've done OEM level, so Samsung TV, all that stuff. So there are 3 or 4 ways you can cut the CTV cake. And each of them has their own pluses and minuses. Natively, if you're integrating, say I'm doing a placement like YouTube, even Spotify, I'm going to call out Spotify. 2-3% of Spotify's consumption happens on CTV. The 5% happens on laptops and the rest is on mobile. So if I'm doing a Spotify buy, I will make sure that I do not leave the CTV part out. That also tends to give a lot of, because like everybody's admitted, right? It's a laid back sort of a thing. Somebody, if you're picking up a sponsored session in a Spotify creative for somebody who's not on premium, you get a very good brand recall for an audience of that nature. That can be a weekend thing, Fridays, Saturdays in a group, and it's a group viewing. You will use Spotify when you're in a group of 5-6 people. Just giving an anecdotal example. So those sort of behaviors are very important to understand. What role that placement or that platform is playing in your media mix. Then these platforms tend to run very good VLSs and strong evaluation frameworks, which gives you the confidence that the brand recall is higher, ad recall is higher. If I'm doing let's say YouTube because of the best example, because it's very, very hygienic. The same creative will give me very minimal ad recall, brand recall on VLS, first party VLS on YouTube, on a placement on a PC or a mobile or a laptop or a tablet, as compared to a CD. And if I am bringing a new creative, like you said, you had some impact or whatever, or if it's a new creative or new product proposition or important time in the market, I will prioritize CTV for that particular placement. There has been 1 or 2 instances when I have vacated or moved campaigns because I don't have inventory available. I have done that also.
Okay, just for lack of a better understanding, like how do you connect the exposure on your CTV to like multiple funnels that you kind of look at it? Because you said you were going to cut it in like different pies. So how do you kind of place that?
So it's my biggest, like I will agree with people here and there are 2 people on the front table. For me, it is a top funnel thing. If I try to squeeze it too hard, it will break, and I don't want to do that. Beyond ad recall and brand recall, I'm not looking for anything.
I think that's most of the
I am not there yet. I will integrate QR codes on my creative. If I work in a category like that is a very good way to understand second screen usage.
It works, the
Yes,
QR code?
I'm pretty sure.
Yes, absolutely.
I've seen, I found
I'm
myself
very
doing
skeptical
it.
about
A QR code on TV.
yeah, very skeptical.
I did it for that. So this new brand called Cool, right? The fan brand started sponsoring IPL whatever last year. So the first time they sponsored the studio and we took the session, I found myself doing that. I'm like, what is this?
Wow.
You don't scan. Okay, I mean, like I'm trying to understand.
Eyes open.
Yeah, because when you do it on a print campaign, you're not sure about how much screen you're reading you're getting. But on a 15 screen, you just have 2 inches. That's a pretty good.
So there was a brand of ours last year during IPL final. They played a 20-second ad which was only QR code.
Yeah.
It was brand.
In
Yeah.
RMG category, out of 20-second ad, 5-second is disclaimer. Throughout the entire disclaimer, the Freddy QR code is on screen.
So we had a
To keep the audience occupied. So Shah Rukh Khan QR code and Government of India, 3 things.
It's a perfect format.
So great. I think we are running out of time. Do we have like a couple of more minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Thank you. I think coming to so I think while you're building your CTV campaigns, what kind of creative consideration do you look at it? I mean, across multiple channels like video, DOH, or your social, right? And and also without actually losing any kind of a message clarity, and still kind of creating that impact.
See, for us, the way we've used it and what works is using connectivity as more of an emotional storytelling, right? You use your longer format ads where you can build an emotional connect with the audience, say the entire story in itself. And most importantly, before I get there, when we spoke about how you will use multiple channels, etc., it's also about the timing of it. How do you schedule it? Everything going live at once versus staggering it. Maybe connectivity goes live first, followed by DOH, followed by social. So the thing that's worked for us is first build the emotional connect with connected TV, where you have high quality visuals. Audio is extremely critical. Do your emotional storytelling there. Then follow it up with a DOH ad, which is much more hyper-local, where you say, hey, you can go to the store right now for a test drive. Like the store is just about 5 kilometers away from here, things like that. Which again adds to a reminder per se, and followed by social ads in case the consumer is lost interest, or to bring them back into the loop. The way we do it is high CTA-driven ads to follow, right? So that's something that's worked. So yeah, storytelling, frequency builder, which is very clean images, not too much of a clutter, followed by CTA-driven creators on social and mobile. So that's something that's worked beautiful for us.
Interesting. I think before we wind up, I'll just throw this question to the floor, because considering e-commerce is part of most of our the things, right? So from the e-commerce lens, how are you thinking the sequential storytelling across CTV, right, and other touch points, right? And are the omnichannel journeys are now being mapped down to the user level? So do you see that happening? I think this is open for everybody, just feel it my.
So we've seen some success with first-party data-led approach on CTV also as a medium, and because it's first-party, we're a little bit more nuanced in terms of being able to understand the life cycle of the consumer, and hence you are able to also sequence the, I'll give you an example, roughly for 50-60% of car owners in the metros, because they visited us in the last 5-6 years that we've been in operation, we know exactly when your car insurance is expiring. So we know when you're going to be in market, when you're going to be out market, right? There's no use chasing you with something to convert and buy when you are 10 months away. So the sequencing of messaging needs to be very different when you are in, say, June right now, but your car insurance is expiring in December, versus when you are in November and your car insurance is going to give you in the next couple of days. So that's one form of sequential targeting that we've been able to do. We tried the other sequential targeting also, ki ad A dikhao, fir ad B dikhao, fir ad C dikhao. The trouble that we've at least had, and I don't know what experience other people have, is that the sequential funnel becomes so small that somewhere the essence of doing all that hard work was lost for us. I don't know if others have seen any success, because if we started off with 100 people and you wait for them to have some meaningful exposure to creative A, and then that waterfall then becomes say 50 people and then 25 people and then 10 people, by the time you reach the fourth message, dikhana nahi dikhana is literally ek barabar. So we've not had success there.
So Netra, considering that you work mostly with e-commerce, so how do you see the sequential storytelling and what's impact?
It's a similar experience is what Nitin mentioned, right? Largely the pool becomes smaller and smaller, where this is really not work for us. But especially on connected TV, but if you kept the, see again it comes to probably scheduling, right? Rather than the sequential storytelling in the manner that we typically have been using. That narrative has worked for us. For example, if we have 4 parts of benefits or a narrative that we have to tell about a particular brand, and we talk about the master edit first, followed by the shorter edit which explains each of the benefit, right? That has worked better for us. So what we saw was one of the benefits that we were talking about, that the brand was offering, it actually saw an increase in a particular week when we were specifically showing that ad on connected TV. So it actually did work for us.
Great. Rajiv, your point of view on this?
Yeah, so I think the way quick commerce is evolving, right? I was thinking from that aspect that today the purchase is more instantaneous than planned purchase, or at a household there will be at least people add on to cart and then buy it when they require it. Not it's purely basis the requirement. Right? In such a situation, moving away from it's a subset of e-commerce, moving away from that, I think sequential is going to be even more tougher, right? It's going to be so unpredictable that you will not be able to judge whether a consumer requires to have a nachos now or not sometime later, right? Or a Coke now or sometime later, right? So it's so unpredictable. But what is happening is that there is a pattern which is evolving, and that's what all the Zeptos and Blinkits of the world, they're creating, that there is a pattern which is clearly evolving in terms of how you can touch upon to that consumer over a period of time, right? So that window they have kept it across approximately as 12 days. This is what they say a consumer journey happens. In that 12 days, if you are able to captivate, so that means it has to be a data which has to flow from both sides, right? If that evolves, I think that will be super powerful, right? Then you're getting behavioral data, you're able to then add the content insight or intelligence on it, and then able to create that as a solution. I think that will be very, very powerful. I think probably we can see that Amazon is probably moving to that space already, right? They are already building that on content in a very, very big way, like how we know about Amazon Prime and all those things.
Content and commerce,
yeah,
something which is
and content and commerce coming very close. I think that's the aspect which we see. That will be interesting session to see and watch for.
Definitely. I think we are pretty much done. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And it's definitely a very insightful session that we had.